Hello, my name is Kevin. Today we'll be doing a tour of the LGBTQ history of Denver. Much of this history was never written down, and a lot of what was actively removed from the historical record. Today we are trying not only to find what happened in yesteryear, but also to preserve it for years to come. And we will be walking from Cheesman Park all the way over toward the Capitol on our journey today. In the 1800s, Denver was predominantly men, and because of this vast preponderance of men versus women, homosexuality between men seemed to be tolerated. The major problem in the community was dressing in a manner that was not in keeping with one's gender. This was against the law as of 1886, and the newspaper often had very sensationalized articles speaking of men or women who were dressed counter to their gender being arrested. From the 1800s into the early part of the 1900s, homosexuals within the community seemed to be generally accepted and blended in with society at large. Some of the common meeting areas seemed to focus around downtown near the Brown Palace Hotel at 17th and Broadway. The first known gay bar in Denver was the Snake Pit, which opened about 1939. After World War II, however, the general tacit acceptance within the community would change. Defense dollars in Denver began to be tied into morals hygiene, and the economic influx of dollars based on this meant that if the city didn't clean up, it would not get that money. Neighborhoods like Capitol Hill had new zoning regulations come in, like the R0 zoning law, which meant that any two unmarried, unrelated individuals could not cohabitate. Not only did this prevent two men or two women from living together, but unmarried heterosexual couples as well. After World War II, that generally permissive nature among Denver, the idea of mixing people, even if you didn't necessarily like them, would change. The morals hygiene movement within the United States came to Denver as well, and at all levels of society. In the 1950s, the efforts to clean up Denver took on a legal sense. The 1886 law against cross-dressing was strengthened, and the psychopathic offender law was introduced, saying that any homosexual arrested by the police could be held indefinitely for psychiatric examination. Within the Capitol Hill area, which was becoming more densely populated owing to the removal of many mansions and their replacement with condominiums, towers of apartments, the 1950s and 1960s saw the community become much more hidden, much more underground within the city. One of the major players in the development of the LGBTQ community in Denver is the Capitol Hill United Neighborhoods group, more commonly known as CHUN. Founded in 1969 to try to combat changes in the neighborhood, CHUN has also helped to fight for rights of other communities within Denver, the LGBTQ community among them. Created in 1969, CHUN was a democratic forum for fighting the efforts to transform the Capitol Hill neighborhood into a place that the neighbors did not want it to be. And over time, CHUN has fought for the rights of other groups and individuals as well, including for LGBTQ rights within Denver. CHUN moved into the Tiers McFarland Mansion in 2005, and they are still active in our community today. This is Cheesman Park, which has had a long association with the LGBTQ community in Denver. Its history is a little more checkered. It started out as a cemetery many years ago, 1859, and served in that capacity, later becoming a park as it is today. In the early 1900s, records show that this was a common place for folks to meet and mingle. By the 1970s, however, its association with the LGBTQ community in Denver had been formalized. In 1974, Cheesman Park was the location of the first gay inn in Denver, and in 1976, the first gay pride parade in Denver began here. Parades to this day still start on their way down to Civic Center Park. In 1987, the Colorado AIDS Walk began in this park, although the community is no longer packed, quote, wall to wall with people, as it once was, as the neighborhood has changed and as blending in with the community and the community at large has taken place, Cheesman Park still holds a place very dear to our heart in the LGBTQ community in Denver. This is the home of the first Unitarian Society of Denver, founded in 1882. Since that time, the First Unitarian Society has been at the forefront of many struggles in our nation, both at the state level and at the federal level, including women's suffrage, temperance, civil rights, and marriage equality. In the 1950s, the Society became an open and affirming congregation, and in 1958 moved to this facility. In 1977, the First Unitarian Society provided the first home for the Gay Community Center of Denver. Over its many years in Denver, it has been an unceasing advocate for the rights of all. On a personal note, when I moved to Denver, I joined a mixed chorus in this church, and there I met my husband in 1995. In 1976, Unity was formed by the Gay Coalition of Denver. Unity was to be an organization of organizations, like the United Nations for the LGBTQ community. One of the primary projects of Unity was the creation of the Gay Community Center of Colorado. According to Phil Nash, the first director of the GCCC, they needed to find offices, and that proved to be a problem. The Disabled American Veterans Building downtown tripled their quoted rent when they found out who was going to be in there. The Art Institute of Colorado initially said that the GCCC could be there, but once they found out it was a gay institution, that offer was rescinded. Eventually, the First Unitarian Society of Denver did offer them these facilities right here. In 1977, the building opened to more than 200 people attending. Over the years, it has seen much advocacy, had also seen violence. The building has been shot at. Many entities, such as hotlines and coming out groups, would be founded in this building, none of which could have taken place without the support of the First Unitarian Society of Denver. This is the center. This grew out of the Gay Community Center of Colorado, and many of the institutions that we know today were either started or adopted here, including the Colorado AIDS Project, the Mile High Freedom Band, the Colorado Anti-Violence Project, the Colorado Legal Initiatives Project, Rainbow Alley, and the GLBT History Project of Colorado. Originally known as the Gay Community Center of Colorado, the word lesbian would be added at the end of the 1970s, the word bisexual added shortly thereafter, and the word transgender added in 2000. Although the center has seen many locations over the years, it has been in this location here on Colfax since 2010. The building behind me opened in 1932 and over the years served a variety of purposes, including a bakery, produce stand, grocery, and beauty parlor. For most folks in Denver, however, it was the purpose it took in 1979 that people remember, as Smiley's Laundromat, said to be the largest independent laundromat in the world. Smiley's was noteworthy for one other reason, however. It was also one of the few places in Denver willing to hire openly LGBT individuals. This is Charlie's, long associated with the Colorado Gay Rodeo Association. Wayne Giacchino learned about gay rodeo in one of his travels and became enchanted with it and decided to create the same thing here. He was co-founder of the Colorado Gay Rodeo Association and its first president. He was also general manager of Charlie's from 1981 until his death in 2008. During that time, he helped to secure funding to have Colfax closed for the Pride Parade, and he gave money to other philanthropic pursuits within our community. Today, Charlie's provides the best hope for a future historic designation for the GLBT community in Denver. It has been serving our community for more than 30 years. What stands behind me now is a nail salon opened in 1982 as Category 6 Books, founded by Neil Woodward and Dan Otero. Both gentlemen were politically active and donors to causes such as the Colorado AIDS Project, the Mile High Freedom Band, and others. Over the years, Category 6 would move to multiple locations and have multiple owners. But during those years, it served some vital purposes. It was one of the few bookstores in the area that served the LGBTQ community, and more importantly, it was one of the few places offering information and support for the community. The Colorado State Capitol opened officially in 1908 with a circular driveway around it, allowing for access and parking for those who worked there and those who were visiting. Eventually, that circular driveway around the Capitol would earn the nickname Sodomy Circle in the 1950s and 60s. Sodomy within Denver was decriminalized in 1970, but in the early 1970s, the Denver Vice Squad began a sting operation against gay men lurking around the state capitol. They would have a van and pull up and solicit men for sex. Any man who accepted would be arrested, even though at this time, soliciting for sex was not a crime. Gay Coalition of Denver decided to take arms against this and took the Denver Vice Squad to court. They also called for the community to come speak to the Denver City Council about this. In October of 1973, after hundreds of men had been arrested, the community spoke out against what was happening in what was known as the Denver Gay Revolt. The Denver Gay Revolt was Denver's contribution to the liberation of our community within the city. In the 1950s, one observer noted that where homosexuals gathered, it was not the homosexuals that were the greatest danger, but those who preyed upon them in acts of violence. From Denver's earliest days of tacit acceptance through the underground times of the mid-1900s and persecution, psychiatric care, and arrest, Denver's LGBTQ community has come a very long way, where once they hid, now they meet together openly in pride celebrations. Where once there was nothing, there is something. There are many journeys ahead of us still, many fights yet to be won, but the folks in Denver, among our LGBTQ community and our allies, are fighting the good fight still. On behalf of AARP and all the members of Denver's LGBTQ community, I want to thank you for joining in on this exploration of Denver's history. We have many more stories to share. For the time being, thank you, and we hope that you make your own parts of this story in the future.